Episode 10. We've made it to 10.
Wow.
Welcome to episode 10 of the Unhyped AI podcast. This week, breaking news: Apple has cured insomnia during their latest event. Did they announce anything interesting? Well, not really. Oracle stuns the world with a massive revenue projection, but is it built on a house of cards? Stuart's writing a book. So what's it like writing a book? Job descriptions. AI agents are applying for jobs at Firecrawl. OpenAI's got a content strategist role when it's supposed to be great at generating content. And we're finally seeing pragmatism in a pragmatic VP role at Disney. LinkedIn launches an AI assistant for recruiters that no one really wants, while OpenAI kicks off another flywheel that could result in massive amounts of money for them. The number one question on Reddit: is anyone making any money with agents? We break it down. The rise and fall of robots. Tesla's Optimus 3 demo versus Helix that does laundry and dishes. Agents are committing telecom fraud? That's not good. Agents on browsers are a disaster waiting to happen? Stewart explains the risks associated with AI. Let's go. So should we start off by putting the audience to sleep with what Apple announced?
Do it. Let's do it.
I spent the entire hour in the Apple event, and the most interesting thing was their new AirPod Pro. That was the most interesting breakthrough that they announced. You saw the stock actually tick up because they talked about real-time translation, and they talked about all of the small innovations that they were integrating into their AirPods, which are, if you don't know, what I've got in my ears right now, that we're listening essentially to anything from the Apple ecosystem on. They are starting to integrate AI features into AirPods. And I wonder, this is genuinely what I was thinking as I was watching, is this the end of the iPhone, where you're replacing your device with something that's a completely different interface? We've seen OpenAI recruit Johnny Ives to create the next hardware platform for AI. And you have to ask, is a screen the right platform for an agentic ecosystem? Or is AI going to take the screen away from us and allow us to do more without having a screen, to interact with the physical world and with objects that are sort of blending in that augmented reality paradigm? So I was looking at the AirPods going, oh, this might be awesome. And then it started falling apart, where the Apple Watch was kind of okay, so it's also the Apple Watch, and it does almost exactly the same things that the old Apple Watch did. And it has new chips that could be used for AI, but Apple doesn't have any, except for these very small, incremental, tiny features. And then they introduced the iPhone, which is the iPhone 17, meet the new iPhone, same as the old iPhone. There's nothing different. And then they said, but wait, we have this cool new thing, and look, it's skinny. We gave it Ozempic, and it's now tiny, and it's smaller than it used to be, but nothing about it has changed. I felt that was the compelling piece of this, was listening to them tell us how, even though they've completely changed the form factor, everything is still just as good as it used to be. They said, oh, we have this groundbreaking iPhone Pro 17 that we're introducing, and I'm struggling to figure out what was novel or groundbreaking about it. Their AI announcements were absent. They're laying the hardware foundation for something, but it doesn't sound like they know yet what that something is. They didn't even tease where they could be going, aside from talking about privacy and on-device data management and all of these other things. I don't know if you caught the Apple event, but I'm wondering, where do you think they go next? It seems like they're so far behind that you have to start asking, is there a way back for Apple?
It's funny, isn't it? Because when you look at social media posts and that about Apple, they're sort of being couched in wisdom. They have not entered the hype race of AI fully, because really what they're doing behind the scenes is they're cultivating something amazing, that's going to shock us all. And you do wonder how long that kind of vibe can continue. before it's, the sort of rubber meets the road. And I think that's the expectation, is that they're doing something, but what, we just don't know. And these incremental plays, how long can they get away with that for? It's kind of like living off, old money, isn't it? But I don't know what they do or what their problem is, to be frank.
It feels like their AI strategy is the work is mysterious and important, and we can't tell you
Exactly.
what any of it is.
Yep.
But if we don't tell you what it is, you'll fill in the blanks and tell us what we should be doing. And that just it's not working. They emphasize design. Design was the big thing of this, and I did not see anything novel in terms of design. And what is incredible is they have AI features that they should be talking up, and they don't realize. This is how disconnected from the customer they are. They don't realize how good some of their AI features are. They don't know which one of those features that they've already delivered, because I've got the developer preview for iOS 26. They don't realize how big some of these AI features that probably internally sound very small, but they don't realize these are really big transformational features. Things like being able to generate different aspects of your photo in real time. So instead of just having to take a picture and be satisfied with that, if they were able to combine photo taking with prompting, which is something they can do right now, they already have most of that stack integrated because machine learning is already touching all of your photos before they get saved. If they just add that additional layer in, they have a huge game changing feature just by integrating prompting with and use voice prompts with photo taking or with video taking, so that you can integrate these elements in real time into your videos, into your photos. That's huge, and they don't realize it. And they're already there. Almost every single piece is already in place. They don't realize how big the spam detection, and we've already talked about this, they don't realize how big that is and how much that saves their customers from being disrupted. If you try it, it is night and day difference. If you are dealing with heavy loads of spam, which I think every CEO on the planet deals with this problem. Most change their phone number every 6 months because if you don't, you are constantly bombarded with spam. So this is a critical feature that saves our attention. Uses AI, they don't realize it's in there and they should be emphasizing it, but they aren't. They don't realize how powerful the pivot to their AirPods are and potentially using the AirPod as more of a user interface where AI is a natural language. It allows for natural language interfaces now. All we have to do is talk to it. We don't have to have the screen in front of us. And this is a way that they can slowly migrate customers to a completely new paradigm of hardware devices and a completely new user interface paradigm. This could be the way that they invent the next iPhone, but they don't realize it because they're so disconnected from the customers and what customers think are valuable.
Yeah. I don't know how they bridge that. I really don't.
That's the thing. If your head's in the sand, what do
Yeah.
you do? What
Yeah.
what do you do? Oracle. We have to talk about Oracle. I added this last night
Yeah.
because there's just no way to escape Oracle's gravitational pull right now. Somebody made a post about it the other day, and somebody said the Empire Strikes Back, and that's really what it feels like. This company's 50 years old. Analysts did not see this coming. No one really saw this except for, I think, Larry Ellison and maybe four other people inside of Oracle who are involved in signing all of the cloud deals that they did. But what Oracle's going to do is over the next 4 years, they're essentially doubling revenue almost every year. They're growing at between 70% and, so I think one of them is 120% that 1 year is estimated. And people are making comparisons to the .com bubble because Oracle was one of, that's how old they are. When we talk about the Empire Strikes Back, this is literally how old they are. They were around and they were one of the big hype recipients from the .com boom and bust in late 90s early 2000. That is insane because we're seeing the exact same thing where they projected here's the revenue that we believe we're going to be getting from the internet, which ended up kind of breaking. And Oracle was one of those with the ridiculous valuations. And here we are again, where their multiple is just insane based on forward looking projections. But then, right on the heels of that, they signed a $300 billion deal with OpenAI. And they're talking about how every single one of the hyperscalers has approached them to use their spare capacity. So they're building out data centers so that all of the hyperscalers can essentially lease Oracle's data center capacity. But you have to wonder what happens if spending pulls back, because this feels like a house of cards. We've got at the very top, the NVIDIAs and the TSMLs and the Broadcoms of the world who are selling picks and shovels to all of these hyperscalers, Oracle included. They're building out data centers as fast as they can because they have demand. Every one of the hyperscalers has reported they have more demand than their data centers can fulfill right now. So they're all rushing in and building data centers. And underneath that is all of these enterprises, and this is where the MIT studies come in and all of these other surveys come in, where they're not seeing 95% of AI investments, what we talked about last time, 95% don't return any value. So that's where the house of cards is sitting, is on all of this enterprise demand. And all of these projections assume that enterprises are just going to figure it out. And so far, we're 3 years in. They haven't figured it out yet. At what point does their spending start scaling back, either because, we're not in the best economic condition right now? Things are uncertain. And when things are uncertain, what happens? CEOs pull back on their spending. What happens when they do that with AI? What happens when they look at their data center bill and just say, I'm not seeing the ROI, I can't figure it out? They start pulling back. Some businesses are going to figure this out and they're going to outcompete most of their competition within the same domain. So there will be businesses failing as well. There are startups that are sort of teetering because they can't get funding. These are all AI data center consumers. And this is that bottom layer of the house of cards that we're building all of these projections on. And I really want to hear your take, seeing that you do the pragmatic side of this better than most. What do you think? Is the house of cards on good foundations? Are enterprises going to figure this stuff out? Or are we going to see some sort of a pullback in the next year?
I think we need to look at this historically, and I don't claim to be a historic economic expert, but there is one pattern that seems to be quite clear, and that is massive overinvestment in a specific technology that comes before a correction, or we can call it a bust, whatever. But what that overspending did was actually lay the foundations of the next S curve of innovation. And I really, and I can't back this with evidence, and I really do think that that's what we're going to see, is that correction. And that you brought up a really interesting point there where you said organizations are going to figure it out. They will. They will figure it out. But these things take time, and it's not just about technology, as we always say. This is about change and people and organizations and systems and complexity. These you can't just slap this stuff over and expect a miracle, and we've done
What?
that every single time. I know, I'm sorry, Vin.
What? What do you mean? I can't just bolt on AI and it'll work?
I'm
Are you
sorry, I
telling
have
me?
everyone's
What are
gutted.
you telling me?
But it's the same. This it goes right back to what I said at the beginning. Actually, this is a technology. It's not a special class. And so we're going to see these same sort of psychological patterns, happen again. So yeah, I do believe there'll be a correction of some kind. I hope it's not too brutal, but I do also believe that we're putting the infrastructure in for the next wave. So it won't be wasted, even if it is a slight pivot. So mixed feelings there. I don't look forward to that happening. But it's always the same, isn't it? It's the law that we overestimate the short term impact of new technology and underestimate the long term, and we're doing exactly the same. And of course, when we do that, what happens is we overestimate the short term, and then we become disappointed and we enter the slough of despond. And of course, it's in that we get the correction. And the risk is then to sort of chuck the baby out with the bathwater and call it all nonsense and rubbish and walk away. And as we've always said, that it's the middle ground that we're looking for, not to overestimate the short term and not to underestimate take the long term is a difficult wire to walk. But it's the only wire to walk. So you've got kind of, like half an eye on each, which is obviously the road that we try to travel. And it's not easy, but yeah, there will be probably some kind of correction, but we are laying down the foundations for, what comes next as well.
I love that you bring up the multiple waves because that's where I think you're really on to it. Is that AI isn't a single wave. We look at
Yeah,
AI, and most CEOs think generative AI, large language models. But AI, if you look at the agent to agent paradigm, which is where we're pivoting to, those rely on smaller language models. Those don't typically use, and this is something Microsoft's come out and said, NVIDIA has come out and said. So it's not just me, kind of blowing smoke here. Almost every large research lab is pivoting towards the small language models and a more limited application of large language models. So even within this wave, we're seeing a pivot to a second wave of AI, which is agentic. But right behind that, we have autonomous vehicles, which is another AI wave. We have robotics, which is another AI wave. We have simulations, which is another AI wave. People look at the IoT and they're thinking, oh, that's a hardware thing. No, that's an AI wave. Why? We've never had access to that much information. And so we are going to have ubiquitous information gathering at the edge. We're also going to be able to serve inference at the edge. So what I want you to do, if you think AI is just this single wave, if it's all generative AI, go to NVIDIA's website and look at their roadmap. Look at things like Thor, look at Jetson, look at Omniverse, look at all of these different products that they've put in place to take advantage of each one of these waves because AI is not a single wave. And so you're right. It's that this infrastructure, generative AI may or may not be that big. Agents will be. Autonomous vehicles will be. Robotics will be an order of magnitude larger than both of those put together. Simulations is again another order of magnitude larger because this is both an inference and training technology. It's both a digital and physical world technology. It's so much more than generative AI, and all we're staring at right now is sort of this generative AI opportunity. So when I look at the house of cards, I think you've nailed it. It's sort of that balancing act. Yes, short term, if you look at generative AI, we're probably in for a massive disappointment, but we're talking about robotics in just a little bit here. Long term, it's a completely different story.
excellently said. And well done for mentioning the edge as well, because that was what was popping in my mind when you were talking about Apple. I'm like, why are they not AI on the edge, just so, so far in front of everybody else? The mind boggles. That's exactly where they should be. And noting also this, the future is small language models. As I said before, we've been lulled into the large generalizable model that can do all things. Of course, it's proving that it can't. What we're seeing now is also this mix coming in, what I call LLMs on rails or agents on rails. This mix of determinism and probabilistic,
Yep.
mechanisms. So that the orchestration part is done by determinism, rules based, traditional. And you're only pulling from, like generative AI when you need it. And as you rightly say, that won't necessarily have to be large language models. These could be very domain specific, small, trained on a very specific corpus of data, to get very highly specific information that's needed in that topic, in that vertical. That's where the future is. But yeah, and I liked the way that you phrased, kind of like, our eyes are planted on Gen AI, and that's all we can see. And the kind of like you spoke at the beginning about, like how much research we have to do just to keep up, but it's also keeping an eye on what's going to come around the corner, because we need to position for that as well. So it's not kind of like everybody's overwhelmed with just what's now, but what's coming around the corner. And as somebody rightly said, recently to me, it's not about larger models. It's what we do with the models that we have. It's what we do with where we are now that is kind of, yet to be figured out, yet to be secured, yet to be governed, yet to be, implemented properly inside organizations, because organizations themselves have to change. So a phenomenal amount of work, and it does take time.
Who knew?
Who knew? I know. I
Who
know.
knew that
Yeah.
this was a enterprise? Oh, that's right, we did. And I
Yeah.
think everyone who's been listening to the podcast has known this for months
Yeah.
now. Hopefully, if you've been following both of us, you've known it for years. Wrote a book a couple of years back about this, and it sounds like you're in process on writing a book of your own. What's that like? What's it like writing a book?
Oh, it's painful. I'm sure you told me it was painful. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind being right. So I thought to myself, you know what? I just do like an extended pamphlet. Because there's so much nonsense out there. I thought I'd just do an extended pamphlet just to
We're
help.
back to the American Revolution. We're throwing pamphlets out.
Yeah, just something a bit bigger than a Substack post, but something like an executive could take away an action and take into a boardroom and feel some clarity. Oh my goodness, you know what it's like? I must add this. I must add that. Oh my, I can't leave that out. I've got to get that in. And before you know it, you're at 30,000 words. I've had to cull it there. I could go on for 300,000, but I've had to cull it there. And it is painful because, not only as a sort of perfectionist, I've got to get it right, got to get it. And you worry what critics are going to say. You're trying to cover every accusation that could come at you, but you're trying to do it in 30,000 words. And yeah, it's agony, but it has this weird feeling of achievement and accomplishment as well. So I'm looking forward to getting it out there. Hope people hope people find some value in it. And again, it's kind of like as we do, Vin. It's not corporate beige. It's not consultant slop. It's kind of like what to do Monday morning for executives. So I'm really hoping it lands, but we'll see. We'll see.
I've just started digging into it, and I've got to say that was the first thing that struck me. It really is. It's a guidebook.
Yeah,
When you called it a pamphlet, that's sort of what it feels like, except it's meatier and it's got more depth to it.
yeah.
So why did you write this? What would knowing now that it's painful and horrible, what inspired you to write this book?
There's definitely an element of thinking about me. Because I'm pretty prolific on LinkedIn, and I do some pretty spicy takes at time. And sometimes you think, you don't want to be just seen as the commenter on the side, especially when you're actually building this stuff and working with companies and in the pain and the reality of it. And then, as I say, that mix of seeing the rubbish that's being put out, even by big consultancies, small consultancies, just so much nonsense. You're like, oh, I've got to do something about this, in my own small way. And I try. I love doing the Substacks, and I've only been doing that for literally a couple of months, and again, you can get to a certain size, but there's always so much more you want to add, you want to do, you want to put in, but you can't. So I just thought, okay, let's get this especially around the agentic stuff and where we are now and the practicalities and what we can do, and a lot of what we talk about, actually I could have done it based on recordings really, but and try and put it in something that hopefully is a relatively easy read and digestible and practical. So yeah, it's sort of born out of oh, look at me, I've written a book, kind of motivation, which does feel good, by the way. And all, but a lot from that, man. We got, if we don't throw some good stuff into this, then it's just going to be the hype and the misleading stuff. So we've got to do something. It's our little effort to try and right the boat, but it is little compared to what's going on out there.
So you decided to self-publish instead of going with a publisher. Why'd you do that?
Just simply speed. We've got to capture this, haven't we? We've got to. I sort of thought about going down the official route, as it were. Firstly, nobody's ever approached me to publish it, but I don't even know how to do it, or you send your manuscript. But I really just want this out fast. Because there is a moment here, there is a window between as we said before, the first that adopted, the fast adopters are now beginning to see disillusionment, and we're seeing that reflected as well, probably in our own conversations as well as in those big reports that are coming out, as you mentioned, MIT, the 95%, blah blah blah. So there's an inflection point here, and also I don't want folk to then enter into the as I said earlier, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and underestimating the long term. There's been some good reports even out today on agentic, which I can talk about in a minute. Agentic systems in banking, they are showing revenue. They are showing that even in highly regulated and critical environments, they can really, really do the business. But it's about that careful implementation. So I just really wanted to kind of capture the moment and get it out there fast. and I just thought, write it, get someone decent to do a forward, and
I
bung
don't,
it on Amazon.
I don't know about that, but I will definitely.
I do.
Oh wait, I'm not supposed to say that. Somebody, some anonymous soul that they'll find out
Some
about
poor
next
soul.
week.
Yeah.
We'll be
Yeah.
doing the forward.
How
Hopefully,
did you find writing a book? I already know the
oh
truth.
god,
I
I
already
hated
know
it.
the truth.
I hated every
Yeah.
moment of it.
Yeah.
And you know
It's
what
painful.
what the joke is? I'm probably doing it again.
Yeah. What is it? It's
Probably
like a
doing
form of
another one.
masochism.
Oh, it
I finished
truly
this one, and I
is.
started thinking to myself, oh, you know what? I could churn out another one of these. And you get that mix of that angst and pain settling as well as that, oh, yeah, I could, couldn't I? And that, because it's a good feeling, isn't it? It is.
Yeah, I've got to say, I hated every minute of the first one, but reflecting on it now, I realize exactly how much of a pain I was to Wiley. And don't worry, Wiley, I'll send you the manuscript so you can say you don't want to work with me again. I get it. I was a horrible person, but I've had two other publishers approach me and just say, look, we don't care what you write about, just write us another book. We want another one. We want, you pick the topic, you kind of set the terms on it, which is one of those, really? And you're going to pay me for that? Okay. All right. Yeah, there is more that I really wanted to write last time, but the next book that I write, less of a challenger book. I'm not going to go as deep into topics that most people aren't ready for. I think my first book was way too forward looking. I had a great response from C-level leaders, but everyone else who I meant this book for kind of came back with it was like an overwhelm response. I don't know what to do with this. And so it's interesting. I need to write a book that addresses that, and it's not just one book. It's probably going to be more than one. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. Yes, you're right. It is kind of masochistic. It is sort of like, all right, let's touch this fire again. It hurt so
Yeah.
bad last time. I'm going to run it twice. But yes,
Yeah.
that's it.
I'm
There's a lot to
cer-
it.
certainly not in that lofty position where people are approaching me to publish a book. That's for sure. But
Give it
I,
time.
so
Seriously, just give it
so
time. There's so
you know,
few good books out there.
I've
And as soon
edited
as yours
myself.
becomes one, it's everyone wants you to write another book.
I've edited it myself. There's nobody else is it, so it's kind of like But as I say, it's about getting something out there that's a net positive. And by the way, I was one of the first people to hound you after your book came out, which was kind of, come on, man, let's get to the product side. You probably don't remember this. This was years ago. I was like,
Oh
man, you
no,
got to
I
write a
do.
book on the
Yep,
product side, because
yep.
it was like it was all there threaded, but it was like, oh, you could just nail. And of course, like that was
That's
what I was
what
working on exclusively at the time.
yep.
But yeah,
That's what I wanted to do. That was the
yeah,
last. So the last chapter is sort of a
yeah,
touch product, and then I
exactly.
walk back from it
Yeah, it was
because I
agony,
told them I needed 3 more chapters to do the product well, and they
agony,
just said, "No, come on,
agony to me.
stop. You've already delivered." At that point, I delivered almost 250 pages. And like I said, it was twice what they asked for. It was 75 to 125. Here's 250 later. And they said, no, no, you got to cut some of this down. And no,
Shame.
you absolutely can't write an entire another chapter and 3 chapters on product management. You cannot do that.
Ah, they
So I
robbed
think
us.
the next book will get more into product side, but
Yeah,
I also want to touch more on technical implementations because that piece
yeah,
seems like it's been overlooked as well. There's this interplay of the technical implementation with the business transformation, and you have to align the two in order for product strategy to work.
yeah,
You can't just bolt on, kind of like you said earlier. And what I want to touch on is that construct of here's how the two connect with each other. So it'll be interesting. I don't know exactly. I haven't figured out what book exactly I'm going to write, but it's yes, it's distant enough in my memory. My life being erased for 4 months is a distant memory enough that
the brain forgets the pain as well.
yes,
So, but
yes,
I know we're slightly off topic. We never planned to go here, but it is so important to say, isn't it? Again, going back to that technology, this AI technology is a technology. It's not a special class. And there, you just briefed on that product side to the business side, and this is
yep,
something else that seems to be fundamentally missing. if product strategy is not aligned with business strategy and goals, and that ladder's leaning against the wrong wall, it will miss everything. And that's how it works. It's always worked the same. It
Who
doesn't
knew?
matter what technology it is, and I just felt compelled to say that because, I see teams, I do bless them, and it's not their fault. It's like, because they're getting the mandate, do something with AI, because then what that inculcates is then looking at the technology first. And as we say, then you're looking at technology, you build something, you run around looking for solutions and things that it can solve and metrics it can move, but all the wrong way round. It's, what's the key problems? What's keeping you up at night? What does the business need? And then perhaps AI is a good technology for it. Perhaps it's not. And then you can build accordingly.
What do you need to do that you haven't been able to do before? Can AI
Yeah.
do that for you? And same question for your customers. It's the exact same thing. You're right.
Yeah.
Yes, AI is fundamentally disruptive. Yes, we are re engineering and reinventing processes, workflows, products, business models, operating models, the whole thing. Yes, we are doing all of that. But businesses still need to make money, right? Businesses still
Exactly.
function on free cash flow.
Exactly.
It's like
Exactly.
you can't eat hype. That's
I
not going. You can't spend that token unless you're a startup raising cash. If you're an incumbent, if you're one of these enterprises, you cannot spend hype. It doesn't work that way.
I really, really hope that certain somebody isn't watching this podcast ever. I guarantee they're not, but I kid you not. A chief product officer, and this was only in the last year or so, chief product officer responsible for building AI specifically said these words to me. He said, "Oh yeah, the chief, I think it was the chief operating officer, chief financial officer. Yeah, he's really good because he reminds us that we're here to make money." And I just thought that sums it up. That absolutely sums it all up, doesn't it?
Yep.
It's kind of like, I wouldn't mind if it was a charity or something. No, this is a
Yeah.
functioning economic business in a capitalist society. But it's that mentality, isn't it? It's kind of like, yeah, anyway.
It's wild. It is absolutely wild. Speaking of making money, we have to make money with our books too. It
Yeah,
feels
yeah,
sometimes like books are nonprofit organizations, but that's the other side of writing a book is you have to figure out how to monetize it. And it
yeah,
doesn't very few people in tech get rich with their books. Joe Reese, obviously huge exception to that rule. He's done extraordinarily well with his first book. He's writing a second book right now, which I think most of the planet's waiting for. I mean, it's already sort of a spring-loaded bestseller, and he's going to be delivering that. And I think I don't know if he's working with a publisher, if he's self-publishing, but it feels like that's the way a lot of people are going, is self-publishing is faster, simpler, and in the end more lucrative as an author to self-publish than it is to go through a traditional publishing house. And who knows, I might pick that direction myself, but it's a publishing house is sort of that safety blanket, and I don't know if I'm brave enough to go the self-published route, because the safety blanket of the publisher is, shall we say, intoxicating. It's attractive. So I totally get why people pick either option. Monetization of your book is more than just how many copies do you sell. It's what doors does that book open up for you. For me, my business leapt. I mean, truly scaled after I published the book, because I started seeing it on C-level shelves. And I'm in offices with people that are the head of massive publicly traded companies, and my book's sitting on their desk. It's just one of those.
Well, what a
How?
lovely feeling. That's
How?
true. That is great. I
Yeah.
certainly don't expect to leave my day job because of the book. That's for sure. But you are right. And I did have that thing. Yeah, but what about if the book actually puts people off you? Because I've done exactly what you did, which is I know that many are going to read it and perhaps think this is fanciful. This is something that is futuristic. Actually, it's from the field, but they are very advanced in their path. I won't deny that, and it's more of a blueprint of kind of how to get there. But we know the reality of most organisations. It's I'm not going to labour on that, and how far away they are from even beginning that journey, or even beginning the beginning of that journey. So, many people, find that, well, I don't know about this. Yeah, perhaps in a fanciful futuristic organisation, but no, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Job descriptions. Let's talk about
Yes.
some new job descriptions. We'll come at this from two different angles. The first one, AI agent job descriptions. So Firecrawl, an AI startup, is posting job descriptions for agents, not for people, for agents, for particular workflows. They do customer service, software development, content creation, and essentially you're submitting your agent. They review the agent's functionality. And if they choose to hire the agent, they're paying you a $5,000 a month flat fee for the agent and then bringing you in to potentially join their team as an AI engineer. And I look at this and it's brilliant in two directions. You're essentially, this is sort of the next generation of a hackathon where you're advertising for an agent. And beyond that, you have the person who is doing a very novel type of job interview where they are launching essentially their career by proving they can do the thing that you want to hire them to do. And instead of it being this, oh, do free work for us, it's compensated. If you're the one whose AI agent is selected, you don't just get the job interview, you also get paid for it. It is absolutely brilliant. I think we're going to see more of these in the very near future. I think this is the blueprint.
I can't think of a single criticism of that. That's absolutely brilliant, isn't it?
It is.
Because all of this. I mean, we've all seen the reports. I mean, I'll go away and do a 2 day whatever. And basically you're doing free work for the company. That's the risk
Yep.
anyway, isn't it? In fact, some people have even seen where the company's implemented the strategy that you proposed during the interview process, which is
Yep.
diabolical. But that is brilliant because not only are you demonstrating, more than just a portfolio, but
Mm-hmm.
you're solving a problem. You're getting paid, rightly so, for solving that problem. And I don't blame the company for them wanting to employ that person. I think that's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, talent strategy in the future is going to look very different. Very,
Yeah.
very different than it does today. I think we're going to use agents to interview, but we're going to disrupt the interview process completely. It's not going to be the agent does the job interview, sort of this bolt on where the agent replaces the candidate. What we're going to see is agentic systems doing an interview in terms of what can the thing you build really do.
Yeah.
And that's the interview right there. What can you build? And it's almost zero effort. Once you've built it, the agent can interview for you as a portfolio project. And this is a
That's awesome.
reinvention of the workflow. This is what we need to be thinking about. It's not simply bolted on and your agent interviews like you would. It is a completely different workflow that is better than the one we had, and that's enabled by this new agentic paradigm.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And I mean, let's face it, the system is utterly broken right now. It's just nobody that's looking for work will say any different. At the moment, it's utterly broken. There has to be new ways, and if this technology can enable those new ways, then I'm all for it.
So, Disney, there's
Yeah,
a VP role at Disney that you like.
I really did like this. So they put up for a VP of collaboration and AI. And I loved it because it wasn't all technology. It was about aligning exactly what we said earlier. Actually, it's really good timing, aligning AI with corporate strategy. It was about enforcing product discipline, so that there's no duplication and no waste. And it was looking at it from that angle, but most importantly, training and guiding employees on. And the one that I really loved and something that I talk about an awful lot is the reshaping of the processes and the skills and the behaviors at that enterprise level. One thing that people miss with this technology, something my book talks about, I'll be plugging it forever now, won't I? Is that one thing AI offers us that a lot of people are missing is a wonderful opportunity to re-examine processes. And the more we go into this agentic phase, the more pressing that's going to become because it gives us a great opportunity to step back. And I know, because I know the criticisms that will come, because I've spoken about this a lot, and that's like, well, we've done process mining, we've done process mapping, we've tried process engineering, or this is just RPA and AI short. So I know all of this. I do understand. I really do. But we've got to take this opportunity to have a look at the processes. Are they good processes? Do they need to exist? Why do they exist? Did somebody build it and to build a fiefdom and a kingdom, and then one day left, or is it, you'll come up against that, but we've always done it that way. Is that the kind of attitude that's going to really take us into the future and be our competitors? And that opportunity to look at these processes was kind of weaved in that Disney role specification. It was really about culture, clarity, and change management, something that just people will not talk about the ability for leaders to be able to persuade and align and simplify, not just innovate with technology. And I really do feel that, for Disney, such a sort of, popular and well-known company to frame a VP role in AI like this, it tells us something. And it's something that we've been talking about. The competitive advantage is not the technology. We've all got access to the technology. It's how people adopt it, trust it, and actually use it in the organization to get work done. And that's why I loved it. Because it was, a bit like your, agentic way of, sort of finding jobs. And, when you see finally those glimmers of light, when people are starting to sort of see it and starting to become public about it and starting to use it and talk about it in what I can only describe as novel ways, because most people aren't, but really the ways that it should be. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, who knew? Value
Yeah.
first. And I think this is the understated paradigm, which is the companies that understand workflow reengineering, process reengineering, not just changing small things, but in many cases reinventing. That's the difference between
Yes.
AI and RPA. Your RPA was, this is what we did with humans, now this is what we do, but we do it with technology. We do it with people, or with digital instead of people. AI allows you to do a completely different type. And it's back to what you referenced earlier. You have stochastic, which is your probabilistic components of a workflow. And you have your deterministic, which is your step one, step two, very logical, follows a very nice linear, clean path. The more I examine clients' workflows, the more we do this audit and these evals, the deeper I start to see this paradigm taking hold, that a lot of processes that we assumed could be deterministically automated can't be, because they're not logical, they're not linear. There is a significant component of uncertainty and probability baked into them. So now, instead of just saying AI is going to do the same thing humans do, we can say, look, what does a person plus an agent, or multiple agents in some cases, enable, which wasn't possible before? And the easiest way to reveal those is the connection to outcomes. We have too many metrics that measure stuff no one cares about. In my course, I talk about the recruiting workflow as one of the many case studies that we do. But when you look at recruiting, no one's objective is to post a job on a job board. No one's objective is to interview 20 people. No one wants to be doing that. They want a person in a chair. That's the outcome. Now, how do we reinvent the workflow to get someone into that chair who's qualified to do the job, to deliver the value that we need them to, for less and better than we did in the past? Not how do we just throw AI at the exact same thing we've always been doing. That's why you see this 95% failure rate. If you just bolt AI on, you end up in the 95% because the ROI is just not there. This is not digital. This is a different technical paradigm. And if you don't have people that understand that at the strategy level, if you don't have these types of VPs, and people don't realize Disney has been doing AI for decades. They have an advanced robotics and advanced devices and extraordinarily advanced machine learning and data science organizations. They've been doing this for years. That's why they know what they need. Follow experience, because they know what to do and they know what to focus on.
Yeah, well said.
OpenAI's got a content strategist role
This was
opening.
yeah, this was superb. Yeah, so OpenAI publish content strategists. And then the inevitable happens on social media, understandably. Well, if ChatGPT can write, what do you need content strategies for? And it just went on and on for days. And I get it at a very, very superficial level. But it was a great opportunity for me to just kind of riff off the difference between what I would call generation and direction. So, these generative technologies generate, but that does not necessarily mean they direct. So it only lands this joke if you flatten the role, and as just more content, and as we've said over and over in previous podcasts, that's the problem that's happened: is the roles have been flattened from product through to engineering, through to design, through to them all, and that makes them ripe for replacement with AI potentially. But the true nature of the roles was always different, and it's the same for content. The craft is real. Set the narrative, choose the stakes, decide what to publish, decide what not to publish, pace the sequence, line it up with product and growth. This is judgment under constraint, not word count. And it comes back to what I've been saying over and over, that knowledge isn't the edge anymore. We've got an abundance of that. That's fine. Synthesis and understanding and context is. So machines can recall and remix at eye-watering speeds way beyond what we can do, but they can't weigh those trade-offs and hold the contradictions and ask for what has it failed to notice, like we can. And that's the difference. So a strategist, content strategist, not a content writer. The strategist stitches the signals together in a coherent plan, the market truth, the product reality, the timing, the channels, the metrics, the internal politics, everything, and then decides what to ship. And it's kind of, I really was just using that opportunity, for that kind of viral joke to really make that point. I know that this could be sort of quite dear to your heart, that sort of strategist, because all I'm seeing now, I'm just going to be transparent about this. Our strategists are so yesterday, it's all about execution, and the problem is we've really entered that paradigm with like vibe coding and everything being done fast. I can get a strategy up and running off ChatGPT in 4.6 seconds, and all the rest of it. And all we do is go faster in the wrong direction. Without the strategy thinking. So, yeah, I understand strategy and execution are two sides of the same coin, and one without the other is nonsense. That's the problem. You need both. So, don't accuse me of not being an executioner. I love to execute, but it took me some hard lessons to understand the strategy part. Probably too late, in terms of career, but I've got there.
That's so true. So I say this a lot, human is premium. This is the component that AI is truly bringing out. If you can generate reams of slop, then it is the human component which suddenly becomes premium. So when you look at a content strategist role, the role of that strategist isn't just the strategy or the pitch deck or that thing. They have ownership over some parts of execution. If you only need to write 10% of the content, what's the 10% that you should be focused on? What's the most important places for humans to be in the loop to create that humanist premium content? Because everyone can take ChatGPT and create the same slop now. I can create a slop book in 2 weeks and it will be absolutely terrible, but it'll sound good. It won't have anything human or anything premium in it. So it's that critical thinking. What do you bring to the table that a $30 subscription to ChatGPT can't replace? What do you bring to the table that a $30 Copilot subscription can't replace? What can you create? What can you engineer? What questions can you answer that OpenAI's LLMs or Claude or Mistral or DeepSeek or any of the other ones can't answer? Human is premium. And we have the ability to take on problems no one has ever seen before. But most people have no framework to do that. They haven't developed their capabilities to sort of that next level that they need to be. Human is premium, but you have to have premium capabilities in order to differentiate.
Yeah, well said. I mean, something that I've harped on a lot on this podcast is, this technology is not an equalizer. Yeah, it's an amplifier of what pre-exists. So if you are a domain expert, and it's actually interestingly quite a few reports saying that um, newer, untypical people seem to be benefiting fantastically from this technology. It's the amplifier of what is underlying. So if you come to it with nothing, you'll end with nothing but lots of nothing. But for example, with that, you might as well talk about the book. For example, you come with your draft. You come with it, and it can help you sort of make it smoother. It can help you make it more readable and perhaps understandable. And you can cut, so, it can help you in that regard. I do it with LinkedIn as well. And I did a sort of anecdotal experiment, between my own writing, just pure my own writing, and that had been polished by, say, for example, ChatGPT, and ChatGPT polished do better in terms of readability and engagement and things like that. But that's only because I come with my ideas, my draft already done. I understand what I'm talking about. Well, mostly, you know what I mean. And I come with my thoughts and my sort of like power of mind. You can't just go to it and say, write me a book or write me a strategy. And I think people almost expect it to do that, like it's a kind of miraculous oracle of knowledge. And it isn't. It doesn't work like that. So I just totally agree, basically.
You really have to compare it to, talking about your book, you have to compare it to what would ChatGPT, if I gave it the same sentence or the same topic and the same prompt, what sentences would it output?
Yeah.
And so what's the difference? What ideas are contained in my book
Yep.
that a book generated by ChatGPT on the exact same topic, really down to the
Yep.
granularity at the prompt level?
Agreed.
What does this chapter have that ChatGPT couldn't generate on its own? Does this provide a level of clarity that ChatGPT can't? Does this provide insights and depth of understanding that ChatGPT simply doesn't present? You have to have a differentiator. So human is premium.
It
And
is.
as we see more and more AI slop, the true ideas, the truth, the sort of this concept of a thought leader is coming back, because we need people with original ideas and not just one. We need people who can continuously, because as soon as you articulate an original idea to the point where it's distributed, all of the LLMs pick it up.
Yep.
And so now they can do the exact same thing that you can, and it becomes sort of part of this slop pile that can be generated by anyone. And you have to continuously be innovating. You have to continuously be coming up with new ideas, new thoughts, new synthesis, which again, back to that continuous learning. I don't know how you do all of this if you are not taking in 3 to 5 times as much content as you're putting out.
Wow, this is why, recently I've been getting up at 2:30 in the morning. It's doing my wife's brain in. But like 4 o'clock in the morning, people say to me, "How do you do it? Get up at 4 in the morning?" I have to. I know because I communicate with you at odd times in my day, and you're up and around. I know you're exactly the same. And it's really, really interesting because you mentioned sort of AI slop, and you mentioned the human quality, because seeing more and more posts about this human quality side, that lived experience, that emotion, that vulnerability, that context and understanding, is beginning to shine now in that slot. I mean, you must get it as well. I get hundreds of comments that they've tried their best to master the fact that it's AI, but it's so robotic. It's so, even if it's relatively insightful or even quite, they've obviously prompted it quite well. It's still got that bland plastic feel to it. There's no sort of lived experience in there. There's no wrestling with anything, and it's kind of that's and I was fortunate to be invited to give a talk to event leaders, and I was talking to them about this. How that's going to become a premium. Use the technology where it's right to use it to automate these things, in terms of marketing and outreach and things like that. But that getting the speakers to actually write about their own experiences doing the conference and getting people to write about it personally, and it's that stuff, ironically, that gets shared on the open web that then LLMs use as a signal for authority, ironically. So it's not just about pumping out 1 million pages on a website anymore with the appropriate keywords. That's not the signal and authority that these large language models are looking for anymore. So yeah, I won't go into too much more detail, but yeah.
Some secret sauce about
Yeah.
how authority is being
Cut it out, cut it
shaped.
out. I've given it away.
You've just given the secret sauce. I don't know. Maybe we'll keep this in. Maybe we'll lead with this. That could be a good teaser. Who knows?
Who knows?
So LinkedIn launched an AI assistant for recruiters, and apparently no one wants it. I've talked to a lot of recruiters who were not. Let's just say that the reception was not largely positive. They said the last thing I need, one of them said the last thing I need is another AI assistant for recruiting. And what's interesting is OpenAI at almost exactly the same time released its recruiting assistance tool along with some training. And I think OpenAI's vision is more of what the future looks like, where you release a training package, certifications, and then you have the certification network that you can offer up to customers and clients and really anyone who wants to use OpenAI or any of their tools. Now you have this certification network of people who are by you educated, trained, and prepared to do this thing on your product and platform. And you can create a talent marketplace. And this is a good flywheel for demand that a lot of people aren't seeing for a product's demand. And I use it, I have my own certification network through my courses, train and certify people on my frameworks, and it drives demand for AI strategy. So anytime somebody comes to me and says, hey, we need AI strategists, I have an entire certification network I can throw at them. So it's a huge flywheel where you create demand by creating these certification networks and then put it on top of a talent marketplace. And that's what OpenAI is doing. And I think, again, future of work, where platforms like OpenAI are going to certify their own and create their own talent marketplace, which will further their product. The more people that know how to use your AI model and your API, the bigger the certification network, the better that this adoption cycle is going to take off. Because, well, what are they going to use every time they get hired? What is the most available talent on the market for companies that are looking and enterprises that are looking to do something with AI? Well, it's theirs because they're sort of creating the supply.
Yeah, I always find it odd when big technology company sort of charges people to learn their technology and get a certification, because you think, well, I'll go to the free one, and inevitably I'm going to use that in my next, job role. Yeah, a lot of people made a mistake with the OpenAI thing because they was like, oh, they're building a challenger to LinkedIn. This is not a social. A social professional platform, or whatever you want to call LinkedIn, is exactly as you described. An accreditation system. Built to and also from that, from doing that exercise, they will of course get more labeled data and more knowledge about what products to build. I saw it through that sort of product lens, almost as another way to go out and get into a different industry. There was one criticism, and that was of OpenAI in general, which is kind of like, it feels like every week they're trying to enter a new industry, and that's good and bad, because you're like, okay, keep experimenting, keep looking, but with the public announcements as well, it can start to look a bit frenetic and a bit all over the place, and sort of trying to do justifications for large investment and what have you. So there is that element. They do seem to be into it, but then I sort of don't blame them for trying different things, really, to be honest. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that happen.
Yeah, every time they create a new flywheel,
Yeah,
they are
exactly.
doing something that it may feel like it's disconnected, but it is a flywheel strategy. It is an
Yep.
ecosystem and marketplace based business model that's monetizing partnerships, education, certification, that certification network, but also building this larger and larger tent to create this ecosystem for a multi-trillion-dollar company. Because right now it's valued at $500 billion, and it's not making that much money yet. So it
No.
needs to have that massive tent, because the people that are buying in at $500 billion valuation are expecting to see their valuation go to 3, 4, 5 trillion in order for them to get the kind of a return on investment that they're expecting. So this is absolutely what they have to do. It may feel disconnected, but every time they release something, I see a flywheel sitting underneath it, which is why this construct and product strategy of the flywheel is so important. If you're doing technical strategy or product strategy, and you're not implementing these flywheels, it's very difficult to monetize if you don't see and understand how to implement flywheels.
Yeah, absolutely. They're sort of self-perpetuating motion, aren't they? All feeding
Yep.
into each other, and that's one of the things I spotted was that irrespective of the success of this, they have yet more data, more knowledge, another industry, another stream for product strategy. Essentially, because you don't know where to pivot if you don't start.
So, odd place to find insights on strategy. But the number one question, I've been seeing this on all of the AI, agentic, and automation forums around that ecosystem on Reddit, of all places. This number one question is anyone making money with this? Is anyone, what are your biggest use cases? Where have you seen the biggest impact? And I'm starting to see this on Gartner forums as well. I'm starting to see this on any of these forums where we hope experts are sitting. And the same question keeps coming up again and again and again. Is anyone making money with agents? And we've seen so many of these. The MIT study came out. That one was really big. Morningstar published research saying that they're not seeing an improvement in free cash flow. And they're actually seeing some companies' free cash flows going down as they start spending more. And you would expect free cash flow to start coming into the picture now that we're in year 2, year 3, year 4 for some of these companies of investment. You see it happening with the Nvidias, you see it happening with the Broadcoms. And then it's sort of crickets. You see it happening with Microsoft. Microsoft was one of the outliers where they are seeing free cash flow growing rapidly. But you look at companies like Adobe, and they are, they report today as we're taping this. We don't know what their results are yet, but they are largely disappointing, only growing at about a 10% rate. You have companies like Salesforce and ServiceNow where you're seeing growth accelerating. And then you have the other side of the spectrum where you look at companies like Dell, which is, it is growing, but it's also struggling on the hardware. But when you get into the data center, you see that they're doing well. You see that HPE is doing well. And so even within the same company, if you look at Dell just inside of itself, you see the PC line and it feels like there's stagnation there. And you look at the data center line and you see this, every analyst is saying, oh, they got this huge trajectory up. You look at HPE and data center, again, huge trajectory up. But then you look at all of these other companies and there's just this huge field of laggards that are littering the landscape, and they're everywhere. So you have to ask yourself, who's making money and why are they different? What's different about the companies that are making money, that are seeing that upward trend versus the companies that aren't?
Are you actually asking me?
Well, I'm not going to
I,
ask you
I
to give
mean,
away the secret sauce, but
yeah, I'm happy to give a few opinions on that.
oh
I
yeah,
mean,
oh
the
yeah,
first is that they've not the ones that are making money. This is just anecdotal, okay, just from a few, from my own experience. The ones that are making money, and there are some that are making money, and that includes agentic as well. Firstly, they didn't tend to be hype driven or fear driven, that's for sure. Um, they didn't. They certainly weren't doomerists, and they didn't go all in this sort of tick box transformation. We must become AI. Just to give a sort of pattern, they seem to have been those that understood very, very quickly that they should focus relatively narrowly to begin with, and sort of not go straight out to big four consultants and all the rest of it, and really tap into the front line. Those at the coal mine. And really work with those closely, to create systems that were going to actually enable and augment them. So there was none of that, fantasy of sort of Dickensian agents out there, from the Victorian times, making everybody redundant. What I'm articulating here is a mindset from the top, essentially, just a pattern that I've seen, and I would. It's funny because of all the people that the amount of people I speak to and work with, it really is the minority that have been like this for a little while now. I'm beginning to see the fruit of it. And they are concerned with things like governance and risk. And it's funny, yeah, and security. It is funny because they've tended to be, and this is the irony, in more heavily regulated sectors and more critical sectors than. So it's completely the reverse to what you would think. Oh well, like, oh, we'll just slap it on sales, or we'll do it on the front end of something that is not, going to get us in trouble with the regulators. Actually, it's been those quite daring in those sectors, and I just find that an irony. But yeah, there's a broad pattern. I'm not going to go too much more into that. Yeah,
I'll give one seed, sort of an answer, which is outcomes focused. The
100%,
closer you
hundred
are
percent.
to
Yeah,
outcomes,
yeah,
the more outcome centric you are, the more you get this paradigm. The less
yeah.
focused on the outcome, the more focused you are on tasks and individual work products and the small, the micro, the short term, the less you're getting out of this. And you're starting to see this stratification of companies that have long term thinking but can short term execute. They can incrementally deliver in order to get to that long term outcome. Companies that are outcomes focused really get this paradigm. And I think I give this example because this is happening in high speed trading in finance. You can see it was funny watching Oracle's results. You saw the bad bots versus the good ones because the bad bots looked at there was a slight miss in their earnings report. And so immediately the stock took a tank down. And those were all the bad bots. Those were all of the machine learning algorithms that were doing high speed trading that didn't know what signal to look for. They were just looking for one or two hard coded elements and making all of their decisions on it. And those bots that traded immediately lost out on a 38% in 24 hours, a 38% return on investment. And the good bots were the ones that picked up right after that and said, "Oh, you're selling? Yes, we'll take all of that." And you saw this almost immediate reversal within the first few minutes. So from bad bots to good ones, you see the outcomes immediately. That's why high speed trading is such a powerful use case for finance, because you're right there connected with outcomes. If your trade's bad, you know it within a day, 2 days, 3 days. And it's that connection to outcomes. If you can create that same connection over longer time spans in your business, you can drive some significant transformation and create those flywheels.
Did raise something there as well where you said laggards, and that does actually really concern me, because when you are talking to people quite extensively and you see the difference between a laggard and where some are, they're not boasting about it on LinkedIn, they're not talking about it in their marketing. It is very sort of unknown. They're just, and so it can create that for the laggards. It can create that, well, nobody's doing it, really, nobody's really having success with this. And unfortunately, by the time that realization comes, yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of disruption coming.
Yeah.
And I think another tale of two economies, talking about robotics. There were last week two demos that for me were just, this is the reality. One demo was Elon Musk and Mark Benioff in front of Tesla's robot, and Tesla's robot was kind of doing a few things, and they were talking about, wow, this is amazing, and here's the future, and here's where we're going. And then on the other side, Helix was showing demos where their robots were doing laundry, were doing the dishes. And you look at these things and you just go, wow, there's a real gap forming between companies like Tesla and companies, just really across the board in robotics, who have already solved a lot of the problems that Tesla is still struggling with. You saw the robot's hands were covered by like these plastic mannequin looking things. And you begin to realize, oh, this is just painful demoware. I mean, it's cool marketing and everything, especially having, Mark Benioff, who's publicly talked about he wants robotics on Salesforce's Agentforce platform. He wants to create this link to physical agents because he believes that's the future of business. It's not just these virtual digital agents, but also physical robotics and autonomous mobility agents moving about your business and doing things that you need in the physical world done. And so it was obviously wonderful marketing because you got two celebrities essentially on stage with the robot. But then you have Helix doing real stuff that people would pay for a robot to do, folding laundry, doing the dishes. It doesn't sound glamorous, but that's what people pay for. And you're seeing so many AI companies that turn hype into product, and they're the ones whose stock values are just, you see the hockey stick happen.
I've seen an absolute avalanche in the last sort of 3 to 4 months, I'd say, a real uptick in research papers talking about, they seem to be phrasing it like embodied agents. I understand what they're talking about here. It's not embodied can mean other things just apart from robotic, of course, but it is that sort of sense of robotic. And, probably an underappreciated nation for this is China. As well in terms of robotics, and yeah, absolutely right. The lessons learned by many that have been dealing with robotics for a long time. I'm not going to take anything away from Elon Musk. He does seem to be able to enter an industry and consume the best thinkers and do remarkable things. So, irrespective of my views on Musk, you have to hand it to him that he seems to be able to do that. But yeah, there is and I just have to hit on that. I mean, come in and do the washing up and do the laundry, and these things that like ever since we were children, these have been on in science fiction and in cartoons. And this is the real. This is what we really want. I don't want to do all of this. Send me a robot that's going to smile and make my breakfast, make me some coffee, do the wash up, do the grunt work, please get on with it. I mean, goodness me, we'd all pay half our income for that, wouldn't we?
Next week, I'll have one behind me, just to,
Yeah,
keeping my
exactly.
shoulders loose.
That was the dream. We had that and the
Yes. Yep.
floating cars and all the rest of it. But yeah, no, I'll have that coming and do hang up my laundry. Love it.
Be
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
Utopia.
Oh
Let's
yeah.
talk about the dark side. We've been talking about the good stuff and the strategy side. Let's talk about some challenges here. Agents are committing telecom fraud. That's not good.
Yeah, it's again, going back to this. This is a technology, and it is, it's constrained by the same rules as all the technologies. Unfortunately, it's not being implemented as if it is a normal technology. So this is how it works, right? So you have a website, and you think to yourself, you know what? I'm going to put an agentic system on my website. Drop your number, customer, and my agent will phone you back. Okay, irrespective of your views on that, all that happens is me as your competitor, I script my own bot, which will drop fake international numbers in there, and your bot will engage with recordings ad infinitum, running up massive telephony and AI costs. Accruing. You absorb the bill, I absorb virtually nothing. Now, the funny thing about this is that this is simply a continuation of standard telecom fraud patterns that we've seen for decades. International revenue, share fraud, traffic simulation, call pumping, yeah, all just adapted to a new technology. So that there's no hack here. I'm effectively just using your own front door against you. There's nothing sophisticated here. And this is the thing: is that the people that have built this technology have not been in that specific industry to even know the basics of the usual countermeasures and types of fraud and things. And I think that's the part that kind of makes me want to highlight this. It sort of annoys me about it all. This sort of like indifference to security, this indifference to the historical fraud patterns, this the things we've learned over the last 25 years are just, it's AI, it's fabulous, a voice agents, amazeballs. Yeah, it is. Granted, don't get me wrong. But there are, I put up a LinkedIn post with just sort of like, the very basic things that should be. And the only reason I do that is that so when people are assessing vendors, giving them a pile of, sort of a spiel. So they at least have a checklist to be able to check again. Well, okay, so does your agent, does it do these cross checks, before? Does it have, a lot of them don't even have limits, any caps. It's just on and on forever. Until in one instance the bank shut it all down. It was like, whoa, what the hell is going on here? Massive spikes in costs, and it's just that sort of annoyance. So yeah, it's a wonderful and modern technology, and it's incredible in its own way, but it's still subject to the conventional practices and wisdoms that we built up over the last 20 years. That's a great example of it.
Security still matters. Who knew?
Oh no,
Who knew criminals
oh no.
still exist?
The earliest
Story at
adopters.
11. Yeah, come on. Agents on browsers. What? Why are agents on browsers a disaster waiting to happen? What could be? What
Yeah,
dangers are lurking?
I've moaned about this before, and I'm going to moan about it again. They're an absurdity, agents on browsers. We know that. Browsers are designed for humans. The web itself is designed for humans. And it's not ready for an agentic world. They're going to have to operate on a completely different web. And I've explained this, ad infinitum on this podcast. I won't go into that again. But just to give a quick example, so Perplexity's browser, Comet, it can drain your bank account by simply hiding a prompt in Reddit. And then a new paper came out. I know it's incredible. Web Inject shows you can simply corrupt an agent's
Uh,
perception with things on a web page that are pixel level noise, invisible to humans, just imperceptible. Giving commands and the problem with this particular technology is that to really be advantageous as they are, say if it's going to book me a trip, well, I need to give it access to my credit card. I need to give it access to sort of, root level permissions of my life. So when they are hijacked, which is very, very easy to do, we're still not very good at securing them from a human perspective. Root access to your life is not going to be good from an autonomous agent perspective. So we do need to build these substrates, agentic web, protocols and security. I've summarized it as the browser agent dream is just weaponized naivety, and I hope it is naivety. On the flip side, just make it more positive. Like MIT just, and sort of similar to what I was saying earlier, just released admittedly it's a survey with EY, so who knows? But they're saying that 70% of banking executives are saying they are using agentic AI, not on browsers, by the way. Hopefully not. Anyway, oh gosh. But anyway, so these aren't side projects or innovation theatre. They use them for sort of fraud innovation, KYC, underwriting, collections. Really important stuff. But it must be done in a very, very careful and just going back to the fraud as well. Come on, folks, and let's not throw these things into the world and and, and just sort of hope for the best because it's not going to go well.
yep. Nope. It really won't. I compare agents with a credit card to. I gave my daughter my credit card for the first time when she was much younger than she is now, and she ran up a $400 bill buying stuff for a horse app. It was a horse app on her phone. She bought a whole bunch of horse upgrades because she had no idea whether $400 was a lot, a little. She didn't
Oh,
have this
bless her.
construct of a guideline. She didn't know to track all of her purchases. She did, she doesn't have all of those guardrails that an adult does. And I'll be honest, she's never done it again. So it was a relatively cheap financial life lesson. I mean, at the time it was annoying, but these are the types of things that agents don't have. We talk about human common sense, human is premium. Agents don't have common sense unless you train it into them. They don't have limits unless you specify them. And we don't think about all of the limits that a human has that need to be transferred to an agent in order for it to run safely.
Yeah, exactly right. And as I say, for this dream to come alive, they do need that root access. Now we're coming back to determinism again. We need them hard coded, those rules, those limitations, what a lot of folk don't realize is that, in terms of agents and large language models in general, they can be persuaded. They can, depending on the narrative, the story, even if you give them a sob story, they can be persuaded to do things perhaps they shouldn't do. So there's lots and
Yep.
lots and lots. I mean, it's not just about securing it in terms of the digital paradigm. We've got an entirely new paradigm to layer on top from a security and risk perspective. So when I keep saying it's going to take time, it's going to take time. It is going to take a bit of time.
Maybe charities need to start targeting billionaires with agents. We can target the billionaires' agents and maybe get some empathy to come
Yeah,
through and get some large donations flowing
yeah.
out. That might be
Unless
a
they're,
way
unless
in.
they're actual digital twins, and then you probably won't have too much joy
unless
there.
they're
But
too unless
yeah,
they're too
too
faithful
accurate.
copies. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, we don't want to be
exactly,
too accurate.
exactly.
All right, so let's wrap up there. That was amazing. We got through a lot and went
Yeah.
a little longer than usual, but I think that's good. As always, thank you. Appreciate you being part of this and joining me every week, every other week, depending upon the timing and how much time we both have. So, thank you again, and thank you
Thank
everyone
you,
who
Vin.
is watching. We're into the hundreds of regulars, and we're getting close to breaking 1,000. I know, yes. So we're doing some good things. Hopefully, you'll be bringing some others in with you. If you like what you've been seeing, please recommend our podcast. Consider sharing it with, literally everyone. We could use the audience.
Definitely. 100%.
All right, we'll see you next week.
Lovely. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.